حسين بن علي بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألا وإن الدعي ابن الدعي قد ركز بين اثنين بين السلة والظلة وحيحات من الظلة صدق إمام المبين صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل الفاتحة. We were speaking yesterday about strength of character, the ability to say no, the ability to make sacrifices, the ability to decide for yourself what you want your life to look like, instead of having your desires, your nafs, decide for you. And it reminds me of a very famous saying by a very famous poet, who Imam Hussein alayhi salam, after he leaves Medina, he's in the desert, he's traveling through the desert, and at this point he's on his way towards Kufa. But remember, he sent Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil up ahead first to see if the people of Kufa are really going to support him. Are they actually going to help him? Are they actually going to stand by him? Imam Hussein wants to see if they're true to their words. The people of Kufa had all written letters to Imam Hussein to say, oh Imam, please come to Kufa, we will support you, we will protect you, we will look after you. But Imam Hussein doesn't know if he can trust them or not. So what does he do? He sends Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil to find out. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil has gone forward, but what Imam Hussein is waiting for is a response from him. As he travels through the desert, there comes a point where he comes across a poet, a very famous poet by the name of Farazdak. And he asks this poet, tell me, what is the state of the people of Kufa? What are the people of Kufa like? Farazdak, he looks at the Imam and he says, Ya Imam, their hearts are with you, but their swords are not. Meaning what? Meaning, Ya Imam, if you go to Kufa, they all know you're the true Imam. They all know that they should support you. They all know that you're correct. They all know that you're the one they should stand behind. But for different reasons, their swords aren't with you. Meaning what? Meaning, Ya Imam, they won't actually support you. Even though in their hearts they know what's true, they know what's right, they're not going to do what's right. They're not going to do what is true. But why? In that time, the people of Kufa, some of them had been convinced through lies that the Imam was na'udhu billah, not a Muslim or not following the path of Islam. Many of them had been offered bribes and through greed had been brought away from the Imam. And many of them, through fear of the armies of Ibn Ziyad and Yazid, had become afraid to the point where they would not support the Imam. For different reasons, they decided they're not going to support the Imam, but in their hearts they knew that this is the true Imam. In their hearts they knew the Imam is correct. That's why Farazdak says very famously, their hearts are with you, but their swords are not. You see, in our hearts we know what the truth of religion is, what the truth and the reality of the world is. In our hearts we know who the one true Lord is. We know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. We know He is watching us. We know how we should be behaving, how we should be acting. We know all of this. In our hearts we know. But the question is, are we going to act upon that? The question is, are we going to follow through with that? The way Farazdak describes the people of Kufa, their hearts are with you, but their swords are not. We have to ask ourselves the same question. We claim that we would be with the Imam. Our hearts may well be there, but are we there with our actions as well? If not, then we're going on the path of those very same people who betrayed the Imam. Those very same people who became the cause for the death of the Imam. Those very same people who became the cause of Karbala. We have to make sure we take a moment and stop and think. Are we, as Farazdak said about the Kufans, those for whose hearts are with the Imam, but our swords are not? Or are we those who can say, Ya Imam, we are here with you, with our hearts, with our minds, with our actions. Whether we say it or not, the world can see it. When they see us, they know we are the true Shia of our Imam. We are the true followers of the path of the Ahlul Bayt. We are the true followers of the path of Islam. Can we truly say that we're there? And until we can really and truly say we're there, we have to keep working and keep striving and keep trying to get there. It's not a given that you're going to be born and you're going to be at that state straight away. No. You have to work towards it. You have to try and get there. You have to make efforts in order to reach that point. But until we reach that point, it's a matter of consistently reviewing who we are, how we are, and making sure that we increase ourselves in our faith and our ability. Recite aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. You see, our existence as people, the way we are, who we are, it all depends on one very key thing. And that key thing is, why are we here? What's the point of us being here? What's the point of us being alive? What's the point of our existence, of our creation? You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He puts it very plainly. He says in the Holy Quran in Surah Dariyat, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I didn't create nor mankind nor the jinns except to worship me. Our only purpose is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibadah is our only purpose. It's the only thing that we were meant for. But then, if that's all we were meant for, then there are so many hadith that seem to contradict this verse. Now, seem to go against this hadith. There are so many hadith that go against what is said here in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here, He says we were only created to worship. But the Holy Prophet, he tells us that the one who gives up this world for the next world is not from amongst us. Meaning, if we give up this world, if we give up our lives purely for the worship of the next world, the Holy Prophet says that person's not one of the people of the Prophet. The Prophet won't accept them on the Day of Judgment. If you give up this world for the next world, you won't be accepted as one of the Prophet's people. Why? Ya Rasulullah, my only purpose is to do what? Is to worship you. Illa liya'budun. It says it in the Quran. There's no doubt about it. The Holy Prophet would reply, but you don't understand what that ibadah is. What is that worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we're meant to be doing? What is that purpose, that worship that we've been created for? And not only we've been created for that, the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it is, I created you for nothing but that. You've got no other reason for being alive except for this worship, except for this purpose. But then, Ya Allah, surely I should just focus on the next world and forget about this one. Surely this world doesn't matter then. If all I've got to do is worship you, then I forget about all of this and focus purely on the next world. But here the Holy Prophet is telling us, the one who does that, the one who leaves this world behind, he's not from among us. What does that mean? If you leave behind your school, your education, your job, your work, your friends, your family, then when it comes time on the Day of Judgment, the Holy Prophet won't accept you amongst the Muslims of his ummah. Why? We see in another hadith what the meaning of this is. And I narrated the same hadith last year. I'll go through it really quickly for those of you who don't remember. It's a time shortly after the time of Nabi Musa, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wishes to send down His azab, His punishment on a nation, on a group of people. Whatever their sin was, whatever it was they were doing, they refused to stop even after being guided. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides enough is enough. It's time for them to face their punishment. So He sends Angel Jibreel down to punish them. Angel Jibreel, he goes down, but before he does, he sees one man locked in a room in his house doing sajda. He's praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so he raises back up to the heavens. He raises back up to where he gets the order from Allah from, and he says to Allah, "Oh Allah, whenever you punish any people, whenever you send down your punishment on anyone, you always save the good ones first." Maulana in the Urdu lectures, he's been speaking about the ark of Nabi Nuh, in which when the floods came down on the land, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed our holy Prophet Nabi Nuh to build this massive ark, and in that ark, the righteous people would be saved. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in every instance, in the story of Nabi Musa, He split the sea so that the people of Nabi Musa, the righteous people, they could be saved there. In every instant, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He saves the good people. And so Jibreel comes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he says, "Oh Allah, there's a good one amongst them. Do you want me to save him first? Do you want me to take him out and then I'll rain down your punishment on these people?" Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He responds, "Bihi tabda." He responds by saying what? My punishment begins with that guy. I want him to be the first to be punished. Ya Allah, why? This is the guy who's praying to you. This is the guy who's not committing the sin that everyone else is doing. This is the only one true good-looking guy there. I say good-looking, not handsome. I mean, he's the only one who seems on the face of it to be good. Oh Allah, why does he become the first one to face punishment? Why does it start with him? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He responds to Angel Jibreel. Jibreel asks the question. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds. He says, that guy's locked himself in a room and he doesn't care about what everybody else is doing. He doesn't care about the people around him. They're all going against me. They're all sinning. He doesn't care. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, his worship is worthless to me. If he doesn't care when people are going against me, then his worship means nothing to me. It should hurt him. He should feel it in his heart that his people are going against me, that his people are going against his Lord. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that He is the first one to face punishment because He locked Himself in a room and He ignored all the people around Him. You see, we can't let go of this world and we can't let go of this earth. We can't let go of this life in order to chase the next one. We have to make sure we strike a balance of both. We strike a balance of the two, both this life and the next. And you see, this life, it does matter. Our actions in this life, they're key and they're crucial. And they have such a big impact upon us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in another place in the Holy Quran, He speaks about the reason for us being created again. But this time He speaks about the creation of life and death. He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. He says about Himself, He says He is the one who created life and death. Why? He created life and death so that He could test you to see who would carry out the best of deeds, the best of a'mal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's decided that this life, it will be a test for you to see how good you can be, to see how great you can be. This life for us, it is a test. But here's the reality of it. We could pass that test by doing the bare minimum. And I was speaking about this with Mehdi a few nights ago. You could do the bare minimum and get by, right? Islam tells you read namaz 5 times a day and fast in Ramadan. Go Hajj once if you can. The bare minimum. You do that, you're set. You don't need to do any more than that. You're fine. Sure. That's all right. You can do that. But the reality is, we, as the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam, have to strive for greater. We have to go for the best of the best. The bare minimum, that's not our level. The bare minimum, that's not what we're going for. You see, we want the absolute best. We want the highest marks. We want the highest grades. We want the highest stations. We want the highest places. And that's what we deserve. And in reality, if you really think about what life is or how our lives came about, for each and every one of us, right? If you think back over your life, you'll realize there were certain moments, pivotal moments in your life that had they been a little bit different, your life would have been completely different. Your life would have been an entirely different life. For instance, with me, I think back first to when I was in year 6, right? Or in fact, even if I were to think back, I can think back way further back than that. When I was in, I think it was in year 1, right? I moved to a new primary school. When I moved to this new primary school, I didn't know anyone there, but there were 2 or 3 guys. They were sat in a little circle. I remember I walked in, there was a little carpet on the floor. Everyone was sat on the carpet. It was carpet time. That's what we called it back then. I don't know if you guys still have that now. But everyone was sat on the carpet before we go into our lesson, right? And there were a few guys just sat together there. And as I walked in, I was a new student. I didn't know anyone. They said, I still remember one guy. His name was Kian. He said, come sit next to me. When I sat next to him, we became mates. And here's the deal. He was different to, some of the other guys in the class. The other guys were different to him. Everyone had their own personalities. Everyone grew up in different ways. Everyone became different people as we grew up, right? Year 1 to 6, that one moment, I became friends with him and that little group of friends. Of course, in primary school, everyone's friends with everyone, but you become closer with some people than others. And then when I got to year 6, did my 11 plus, alhamdulillah, I got into almost all the schools I wanted to get into, right? And so I had a choice between all of these schools. I had a choice between like top grammar schools. I had scholarship from a private school. I had all of these choices. And I still remember to this day, my dad said, look, Zaki, all of these schools are great, but there's a school that's literally right down the road. I mean, it's not as good as the rest of them, but you might as well just go there. It's close, it's local, it's easy. And also my brothers had been to that school. And so my dad was like, look, you already know people in that school. You'll be fine there. So I decided to go there. And to put it nicely, the atmosphere of that school was very, very different to private schools or grammar schools. It was a very different kind of world that you grow up in when you go to a school like that. All boys public school is very different to, the high-end top grammar schools and private schools. And I think back, if in that moment I'd gone, no, Dad, I want to go to a different school. I want to go to, I could say the names, but it wouldn't really mean anything to you guys. What's the name of, I don't know, one of the nicer schools here? And don't say Maiden Early. I know it's not that great. You said it was the second best. What's the best school in Reading? Reading Boys. All right. So let's say, for instance, you're in year 6 and you think to yourself, where do I want to go? Do I want to go Maiden Early? Do I want to go Reading Boys? And what's the school that's not very good around here? Herschel Grammar. That's in Slough, isn't it? There we go. So what's that? Wangels. All right. Let's say I want to go there instead. If in that moment you make that decision, think about from year 7 to year 11, how much growing up do you do in that time? And how much you'll be different, how different you'll be when you get to year 11 compared to where you were in year 7. Right? You see, that little choice that you make there, it makes a massive difference. And then I look back over my life again and I think about year 7. When I got into year 7, when I got into the school that I went to, all of a sudden we're sat in alphabetical order. And so the guys that I'm sat with, we're all sat right at the back of the class. And that group of guys are a very specific type of group of guys. Again, different to some of the other groups that were in the school, that were in my classes. And had I been sat with other people, I know for a fact I would have been a very different person come the end of year 11. Forget come the end of year 11, come the end of year 7, I would have been a very different person, just in that 1 year. You see, all these little choices, these little things, they make such a massive difference in our life. If you think about it like dominoes that keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? These little things make such a big difference. And I've gone a very roundabout way to explain this point, but I'm getting to the end of it here. Imagine if one of those tiny little things, not in your life, but in your parents' lives had been different. Let's say, for instance, if, for whatever reason, however it happened, your parents never met. Let's say that on the day that your parents were going to meet, I don't know, your dad was running late, or your dad, I don't know, didn't go to school that day, or he didn't, whatever it was that happened that made your parents meet. Just imagine for 1 second, if one slight thing changed and your parents didn't meet, would you be born? No. Now, let's think about that. All right, forget that. Let's go back one further. What about your grandparents? One slight change in their life. If that was different, would you have been born? Well, your parents wouldn't, so you wouldn't. What about their parents? No. What about their parents? Think about it this way. Throughout history, there are so many different points that if they had been even slightly different, you wouldn't exist today. If they had been ever so slightly different, you would never have been born. Nor you, nor your parents, nor your grandparents. This life that you know, there would be none of it if slight little things had been different. And so it stands to reason that we can say then that everything had to be pinpoint perfect for us to be born and to exist in this life that we exist in. And let's say the things changed, but they didn't change that much that I wasn't born. They'd still change that much that your life could look drastically different. They'd still change that much that your life could be an entirely different life to the one you live. Now, the life you live, we're blessed to have this life. We're blessed to be able to exist at all, let alone live the lives we live. Now imagine if all of that had to be so perfect, and my life becomes, I'm born, I go to school, I work, I retire, I die, and that's it, everyone forgets I existed. All of those points of perfection throughout history, they're all wasted on that life. A life that didn't mean anything, a life that didn't account to anything, a life that didn't become anything. If when you leave this world, the world forgets you existed, then all of those moments which had to be perfect, they might as well not have been. They might as well have been different because that was a life which was wasted. All those points and moments wasted. We have to make sure we get the most out of our lives. We have to make sure that we make these lives worthwhile. Why? Because it's taken so much perfection and so much detail for us to have these lives, for us to exist, for us to be born, let alone to exist and live in the way that we live. The houses that we live in, the families that we have, the friends that surround us. All of these things that we have, they come from a world and a history of perfection. A timeline where everything happened exactly as it had to happen. And so we must make sure we don't waste our lives. We got to make sure that our lives are worthwhile, our lives are worth living. And the best way to make your life a life worth living, the best way to make sure that your life was worthwhile, is to make sure that once you're gone, your life doesn't wrap up there with you. To make sure that when you leave this world, your life isn't finished. But how? The first thing is the people that you surround yourself with. You see, when you leave this world, you'll leave people behind in this world. You'll leave people here on this earth. The reality is, a lot of people forget their loved ones. They remember them for a little while, but after a while, if you go, today I was in, what's the name of the place I was in, Haider? Forbury Gardens, right? And there's a graveyard there. And I looked at those graves and completely abandoned graves. Grass growing over some of them, sunken into the ground, nobody to look after them. And I think to myself, God forbid my grave ever ends up like that. God forbid people forget my grave. Why? Because if they've forgotten your grave, it means they've forgotten about your life. The impact you had on them. That's the first thing. The impact you have on the people around you. It's so crucial, it's so critical. If you want to make your life a life that was worthwhile, a life that was worth living, have an impact and a positive impact on the people around you, on the world around you. Make sure that your life is one that is remembered. even after you are gone. Recite aloud, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. You see, you have to make your life worth living, and the first way to do that is to leave an impact, is to remember the people around you. When you do that, when you have an impact on the world around you, then you can say truly that if I wasn't alive, if I didn't live, then it would have made a difference to the world. It would have made a difference to the world. And look, when we're younger, we all like to think of the idea that we might save the world one day. We look at these stories of superheroes and think, one day I'd like to be a superhero, I'd like to change the world. The reality is most of us won't change the world. Hey, look, some of you might, one or two of you might. But you only get those people once in a lifetime, once in a generation. The Ayatollah Khomeinis, the Ayatollah Bahjats, they come around once in centuries. You don't get very many people who change the shape of the entire world. But if you think about a little something called perspective, think about the way you see the world, the way you see your life. Let's say, for instance, that I don't know, let's say Haider has a teddy bear and he sleeps with that teddy bear every single night, right? And he cannot sleep without his teddy bear. No matter what, Haider can't sleep without his teddy bear. He has to hug it tight every night, otherwise he can't fall asleep. Now, for whatever reason, somehow, one day, Haider decides, I'm going to bring that teddy bear to Zainabiya. He's bringing it to Zainabiya. He's got the window open in the car as he's driving along. Shigri uncle, he's driving quite fast. And as he's driving through the streets of Reading, Haider, he's not really paying attention to the teddy bear too much. It goes flying out the window. It goes flying out the window. And now, as he gets to Zainabiya, he realizes, where is it? Where's my teddy bear? Where is it gone? Now that night, Haider can't sleep. The next night, Haider can't sleep. For him, it's the biggest deal in the world. I've lost my teddy bear. What's going on? He tells anybody else, I've lost my teddy bear. They're going to look at him and be like, what's wrong with you? Who cares about your teddy bear? It doesn't matter. It makes no difference. See, this is perspective. Haider's living life through his eyes. Haider's living life in his world. Because that's the life that he knows. That's the world that he knows. You are looking at his life through your eyes, through your lens, through your perspective. To you, that teddy bear doesn't matter at all. To him, it matters a lot. You see, for each and every one of us, we're living a different world. Every person you walk past on the road, they have a life of their own. They're seeing the world through a different lens, through a different way. Different things matter to them. And you'll see this if ever you've gotten into an argument with your friends, right? In your head, you're right, they're wrong. That's always the way, right? You've gotten into an argument with your friends. You're right, they're wrong. Let's say whatever happened. The argument, it got quite big and now you stop being friends entirely. It's been a year, it's been 2 years. You're not friends with them anymore. In their story, you're the bad guy. In their story, you're the villain. In your story, they're the bad guy. They're the villain. Why? You're looking at the world through your eyes. They're looking at the world through their eyes. You see, we might not be able to change the entire world, but each and every person around us is living in a world of their own. Each and every person around us is living in a world that belongs to them. We might not change the entire world, but there are so many worlds around us in each and every person that we can change and impact every single day. You see, if you want your life to be worthwhile, a life worth living, try and impact positively as many of those worlds as you can. Try and change as many of those lives as you can for the better. Because when you do that, when your time comes to leave this world, you'll be able to leave knowing, if I didn't live my life, if I hadn't been born, if I didn't do things the way I did things, then you know what? The people around me, their lives would have been different. Their lives would have been worse off. And so I can go into the next world knowing that me coming into this world, me living, breathing, existing here in this world, in this land, in this life, it had a meaning, it had an impact, it had a reason. It's not like had I not been born, it would have made no difference. No, I made a difference. Not just to the world, but to many, many worlds all around me. We want to leave an impact. We have to learn to be part of that bigger community. We have to learn to look past just our world and just ourselves. We're part of a greater community. We're part of a greater world. We're connected with the world in ways that we don't even realize. We have to lean into that connection and make sure we're making the most of it. Recite another loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. And you see, when it comes to the next life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will ask you about your impact in this life. your impact on this world. We have in the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Tilka ummatun qad khalat, laha ma kasabat, wa lahum ma kasabtum, wa la tas'aluna amma ya'lamun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Holy Quran that there were nations that came before you. For them is what they did. For you is what you did. But when He says for you, He doesn't mean you as an individual. He means you as a nation. For those nations is what those nations did. For your nation is what your nation did. And you won't be asked about what they did. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals this verse, what He is saying without actually saying it. When you look to read between the lines, what's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying? He's saying, look, there were nations and people that came before you. They're going to be asked about what they did. They carried out their actions. They're going to be asked about that. You won't be asked about what those nations did. But what would I be asked about? What's left then? What did my nation do? What did my people do? The people that are around me, what did they do? But oh Allah, I've always been taught that on the Day of Judgment, I only have to answer for myself. Nobody else will answer for me. It's true. But what Allah will ask you is, when you saw your friends going against the religion of Islam, what did you do in that moment? When you saw your friends doing those things which were bad, what did you do in that moment? And likewise, when we think about the questioning of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment, we always think about the bad things. He'll question you about the good things as well. You get a chance to show off on that day as well, but make sure you have something to show off about a little bit. Allah will ask you, look, your friend did this thing that was really good. What did you do about that? What was the reason for that? And you get to say, you know what? My friend, he never used to read namaz, but he started praying namaz. Why? Because I got him to. I convinced him to. I pushed him towards it. I convinced him to. I got him to do that, Ya Allah. You'll be asked about the good and the bad. On that Day of Judgment, make sure you've got something to show off about. You'll be asked about your friends. You'll be asked about your family, the impact and the influence you had on them. Make sure on that day you can say, oh Allah, nobody did anything bad because of me, but they all did good things because of me. I drove them towards good things. I drove them towards betterment. I drove them towards improvement. In fact, we have in another hadith, or in fact in the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنحون عن المنكر. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Holy Quran that you are the best nation to ever exist throughout mankind. Throughout the history of mankind, you are the best nation to ever exist. Why? تأمرون بالمعروف وتنحون عن المنكر. You encourage people to do good and you keep people away from bad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, look, you want to be the best of people? And we said earlier, when we were looking at what the purpose is of our creation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, what? الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. He created life and death so that He could test to see which of you does the greatest of deeds. We're being told here, the greatest nation, the greatest people are those people that encourage those around them to do good and discourage them away from evil, discourage them away from bad. And when we look at Karbala, the same thing applies. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he says explicitly, in no uncertain terms, that one of the reasons for his leaving Medina and going on this stand against Yazid is Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar. To encourage good and discourage bad. You see, it's part of our duty. It's part of our faith to make sure the people around us are good people. To improve them. To drive them towards that which is good. In whichever way you know how. And I can't sit here and tell you what the best way is. I can't sit here and tell you that your friends will respond to this and not to that because you know your mates better than I do. You know your families better than I do. You know what they will answer to and what they won't answer to. You know how to talk to them better than anyone. So if you see one of your mates lacking behind, if you see one of your mates falling behind, try and pull them up with you. That's what a true friend is, right? You're going to have loads of people in life who you can have a laugh with. And you realize this as you get older, right? A few of you boys are about to go into sixth form. You'll realize this once you hit sixth form. The friends that you had throughout secondary, you were mates with everyone. As you got older and older, you got to year 11, slowly that circle starts to tighten a little bit. There's less and less people that you're friends with. As you get to sixth form, that gets even tighter, that circle. You get even closer with a few people and you start to lose all of those people that were, excess. Those people who were mates that you just chill with for a laugh. You only chill with them because you spend 6 hours a day with them in school. You start to realize who are the people that I actually want to spend time with and who are the people that are just there for a joke and there for a laugh. And those people matter too. You need to have friends like that as well. But your truest friends, your closest friends, they're the ones who, when you're doing something wrong, they can tell you and you don't get upset. You'll have people where if they're doing something wrong, you know, I can't say anything to him because he'll get upset, he'll take offense. You see, the reason usually is because you're not that close with them that you can have that conversation with them. But those friends who you can talk to without them getting upset, without them taking offense, without them taking it to heart, those are the friends that you really have a responsibility over. You have to help your friends and they should help you too. I remember, and I'll finish with this before I go to Masa'ib. Me and one of my friends recite aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I've got one friend of mine and he's, mashallah, particularly healthy. Well, he's lost quite a bit of weight now, but back when we were younger, he was, mashallah, and I say healthy in the Urdu sense of the word, not the English sense. You see, we would always go to this little chicken shop, and it was right by the mosque, right? It was called Chicks. It was a great little place. It would always ruin your stomach, but the wings were amazing, right? 250 wings, you go there, and after, every time we'd go to the mosque, after we'd go there. After school, we were there. If we're not there, we're at Chicken Cottage. We'd always go, after football, we were there. After anything we did, that's where we always ended up. The night always ended up there at Chicks. And I remember I was eating at one time, and this is when I was like, I'd started going gym. I was a bit more into my stuff. I think I was about, I want to say 15, 16 at the time. And so I looked at my mate and I realized he's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, mashallah. And I said to him one time, I was like, you know what? He said, like, all right, let's go Chicks. In fact, I don't even think he said it. I think he was just instinctively assumed that's where we're going to go. We're going to go to the chicken shop after. And I said to him, I was like, you know what? No, let's try another place. He said, where? I was like, it's on the other side of Tooting. That's where I'm from. He said, it's on the other. I said, it's on the other side of Tooting. And instead of fried wings, they do grilled wings. It's really nice. Why? In my head, all I was thinking was grilled wings are healthier. They're a bit better for him. And we went there and it was good. It was more expensive, but it was good. And we enjoyed it. And he's like, oh, this place is great. We should have come here before. And I was thinking, yeah, we should have. But the reason we went there wasn't because it's, better tasting. It wasn't because any of that. No, the reason we went there is because in my head, I thought, I've got to do something for my mate. Like, he's getting to the point where it's not healthy. I mean, he was never really that healthy, but it's getting to a point where it's a problem now. And I thought to myself, if I'm his mate, I should really be trying to do something to help him, right? Your mates are meant to be the ones who uplift you. Your mates are meant to be the ones who carry you further, not the ones who hold you back, not the ones who hold you down. Your mates aren't meant to be yes men. And with a passion, I really don't like yes men. People who agree with you no matter what. Whether you're right or wrong, they will always agree. They will never say a word against you because those people aren't helping you in any way. In fact, they're causing you much more harm and much more damage than they are doing benefit. Because if they can't point out when you're wrong, then you're never going to realize it. If you can never realize when you're wrong, then you're continuing down the wrong path again and again and again. And not only are you continuing down the wrong path, you're solidifying your mindset in that direction. As friends, you should be able to challenge each other. You should be able to help each other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's telling us, Amr bil ma'roof and nahi anil munkar. They're key, they're critical, they're crucial. We have to understand for ourselves, if I want my life to be worthwhile, I have to make sure I have an impact on this world. And you know what? When we talk about hayhat min dhillah, which is what we've been talking about over these last few days, the greatest dhillah, the greatest dishonor and disrespect is for me to come into this world and one day leave this world without having any impact. If my life was worthless, if it had no value, there's nothing that's more dishonorable than that. Bring value to your life. Bring meaning and matter to your life with Amr bil Ma'ruf, with Nahi anil Munkar, by being part of those around you and having a positive impact on the world around you. Recite aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Tonight we remember that young man who, when it came time for his janazah, when it came time for Hazrat Qasim to have his janazah raised, it was unlike any other. We've spoken today about when we leave this world, what impact will we have? When we leave this world, how will we be remembered? When we leave this world, we will have people to carry our coffin. We will have people to take us to the graveyard. We will have people to bury us. It's known throughout the world that when someone dies, their coffin is raised on 4 shoulders at least. Tonight we remember that young man whose janazah was raised on one single shoulder of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. But to understand the pain of Aba Abdullah in this moment, I take your minds back to Medina. On that night where Aba Abdullah had to leave Medina, on that night where he was forced away from his home, Aba Abdullah was trembling all night. The pain was overcoming him all night. It is said in that one night, our holy Imam, he went to the grave of Rasulullah 3 separate times. He would go to the grave of Rasulullah. He would sit there, he would cry to Rasulullah, and then when he would feel some peace in his heart, he would get up and return home. But he couldn't stay at home. He would get up again, return to the grave of Rasulullah. It is said that 3 times our Imam went to the grave of Rasulullah, and all 3 times he is described as having walked as though he was a man with a purpose, a man who was walking with his back straight, his chest bare. He would walk towards Rasulullah's grave. On that 3rd time, I won't go into detail, there's not much time, but on that 3rd time, it was the time for Imam Hussein to finally say goodbye to the grave of Rasulullah. After that, it is said, when Imam Hussein left the grave of Rasulullah, he went from that grave, not back to his home. Instead, he goes somewhere else. But this time, he does not walk like he was walking before. His stance is not tall as it was before. He is not walking as though he is walking as a man of purpose. Now, the narrations say from here, Aba Abdullah, as he gets up from the grave of Rasulullah, he does not walk. Instead, he begins running towards Jannatul Baqi. He runs to the grave of his brother Hassan Mujtaba. He sits there and cries and weeps next to his brother's grave. Aba Abdullah, he is that man who, when he was a child, he used to play in the lap of Rasulullah. Very soon, he lost his grandfather. When he lost his grandfather, he sought comfort in the arms of his mother Zahra. But when Zahra left this world, Hussein turns to Ali ibn Abi Talib, his father and his rock. When Hussein no longer had Ali there, now he has Hassan Mujtaba, and that is all Hussein has left. His big brother is the only one there to look after him. On this moment, in this night, as Hussein is leaving Medina, my heart tells me he would have cried to his brother saying, Ya Hassan, there was that day in Medina where you left me. Hassan, today the day has come where your Hussein is leaving you. We go forward to the day of Ashura. Hazrat Qasim, the son of Imam Hassan, he keeps going back and forth to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. When Habib gave his life, Hazrat Qasim came to Imam Hussein. He said, my uncle Hussein, will you let me go and give my life? Will you let me go to the battlefield? Aba Abdullah says, Qasim, no, not right now. When Hur gave his life, Hazrat Qasim came to Imam Hussein. He says, my uncle Hussein, will you let me go? Hussein says, no, Qasim, not right now. Ali al-Riyahi went and gave his life. Qasim came. Hussein said, not right now. John went. Qasim came. Hussein said, not right now. Again and again, the companions of Imam Hussein would go. Again and again, Qasim would ask for permission. Again and again, Hussein would say no. There came a time where Hussein could not say no any longer. Instead, he stops Qasim. He says to him, Qasim, my prince, my child, do you know why I cannot let you go to the battlefield? Qasim, he looks at his uncle Hussein. He says, my uncle Hussein, tell me, what is the reason? Hussein says, Qasim, in this land your uncle is all alone. In this land, when I wish to see Rasulullah, I look towards my Akbar. When I wish for my father Ali, I look towards Abbas. Qasim, whenever throughout my life I have needed my big brother by my side, I have looked towards your face, Qasim. It brings peace to my heart. Hazrat Qasim, he looks up at his uncle, unsure how to respond. He returns to the tent of his mother, Bibi Farwa. In that moment, according to some narrations, Qasim remembers himself. According to others, his mother reminds him of that letter that Mawla Hassan wrote before he left this world. Qasim, he takes that letter. He comes running out of the tent, waving the letter in the air, rushes up to his uncle Hussein. He hands his uncle the letter. Now, Aba Abdullah, as he unfolds this piece of paper, immediately the tears begin to flow from his eyes. He does not even read the letter before the tears begin to flow. I would ask, Ya Imam, why is it that your tears begin to flow before you even read what was in the letter? The reply would come, in today's day and age, when we lose somebody we love, what do? We go over old photos of them. We look through old videos of them. We listen to their voice. In the time of Imam Hussein, there were no old photos of Imam Hassan, no videos of his big brother who he had lost. Instead, all he had was when he opened that letter, he recognizes the handwriting of his brother. All those memories come flooding back to Hussein. Abu Abdullah's tears begin to flow, and now he reads the letter. What does it say? My Hussein, there will come a time where Islam will need the sacrifice of Hassan-e-Mujtaba. On that day, Hussein, I will not be there. Take my Qasim as a sacrifice from me. Abu Abdullah, he places the letter over his eyes. He pulls his Qasim in close. He holds Qasim so tight, hugging him so dear. We're told in that moment the tears were flowing so much so that both Imam Hussein and Hazrat Qasim fell to the ground in tears. The time comes now where Hussein, he pulls Qasim away from him. He says to him, Qasim, go and prepare yourself. Prepare yourself, Qasim, for battle. Hazrat Qasim returns to the tent of his mother. He is only a young boy at the time, only a young man here, Hazrat Qasim. His mother gives him new clothes to wear. His mother combs his hair. His mother takes her final looks at Hazrat Qasim. Now I would say Hazrat Qasim is prepared, but he is not prepared for war just yet, no. Hazrat Qasim, he is prepared for death indeed, but not yet for war. He is prepared to meet Rasulullah, but he is not prepared for battle. Prepared to meet his father Hassan-e-Mujtaba, but not prepared to fight the enemy. Why? Because Qasim, he is wearing clean clothes. Qasim, his hair is combed. Qasim is looking very presentable to meet his father and his grandfather and his great-grandfather, but Qasim does not have an armor to wear for the battlefield. He does not have a helmet on his head yet. He comes to Imam Hussein to take his armor and his helmet. Abu Abdullah takes one zirah, one armor of chain. He places it over Qasim, but the armor is too big. Qasim is only a young man, so the armor does not fit him. Imam Hussein takes it off. He tries a second, but again this too does not fit Qasim. He tries another. Again this doesn't fit Qasim. At one point Hazrat Qasim stops the Imam. He says, my uncle Hussein, Qasim does not need an armor. My heart tells me Hussein would have said, Qasim, you are going out to battle. Of course you need an armor. The reply would come, my uncle, the armor is for those who wish to protect themselves. I am going to protect you. When Qasim goes to the battlefield, he has no intention of returning. My uncle Hussein, let me go. I am ready to give my life. My father is waiting for me. Let Qasim go to the battlefield. Now, Hussein ibn Ali, he helps Qasim mounts his horse. Qasim rides out towards the enemies. Only a young man, but what a brave fight he fought. Here, Qasim ibn Hassan, he sends many of the enemies of Islam to hell. But the moment comes where the narrations say the strap on the sandal of Qasim broke. Only a young man, not familiar with the art of war. Qasim ibn Hassan in the middle of the battlefield, he leans down to fix the strap. As he does, a man steps forward. He strikes Qasim on the back of the head. Qasim begins to fall from his horse. He calls out, Ya Amma adrikni, my uncle, help me. Hussein and Abbas, they hear the cry of Qasim. They go rushing towards the battlefield. But as they do, what do they see? A man is standing over Qasim with a dagger in his hand, trying to cut the neck of Qasim ibn Hassan. Hussein and Abbas, enraged, they go flying into the battlefield. The man rushes off into the army to hide. It is said, and the narrations repeatedly say the same thing. It was as though two eagles were swooping, looking for their prey. A small battle ensued right here in Karbala as Hussein and Abbas, they attack those who tried to kill Qasim. Hussein attacks the flanks of Maymana. Abbas attacks the flanks of Maysara. The armies of Yazid, in their fear, they begin to panic. One One army rushes towards the other army rushes towards the first. In the middle on the battlefield, Qasim lays alive as his limbs are being ripped from one another. His bones are being crushed under the hooves of the horses. In this moment, Abu Abdullah fights that battle. As that battle ends, the dust begins to settle. As the dust settles, Hussein turns to look for where Qasim was lying just a moment ago. What does he see? The body torn limb from limb, the body torn to pieces and shreds, the bones crushed and destroyed. Abu Abdullah, in that moment, he comes forward and approaches his nephew, calling out, "My Qasim, will you forgive your uncle? You called out to me, but Hussein was too late. Qasim, will you forgive Hussein?" ألا لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. We raise our hands in dua and we pray to Allah Azza wa Jal. Oh Allah, accept all our ibadat in this holy month of Muharram. Oh Allah, for all those mu'mineen around the world struggling with ill health, grant them complete shifa. Oh Allah, for all those mu'mineen who have left this world, in particular the marhumeen of all those present, raise their ranks in Jannah. Oh Allah, for all those around the world struggling under oppression, grant them freedom from their oppressors. Oh Allah, hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time and allow us to enter Jannah under his banner. ربنا تقبل منا إنك